Welcome to Ruffin Canyon. My name is Miss Laura and I work for the Elementary Institute of Science as a STEM instructor. I teach all sorts of earth sciences, and today we're going to explore the local geology of San Diego here in the canyon. Let's get started. So let's look at some of the tools that we'll be using in our fieldwork today. First, we're going to need a rock and mineral identification guide. This will help you identify whichever rocks that you pick up. Next, you'll want a field notebook. This is helpful to log any observations that you make outside. Then you'll want a sample collecting kit. This can be as simple as a plastic bag, a Sharpie, to log where you are, what you collected, and the date. Next, you'll want a compass, so you can orient yourself to what direction you're facing. You also might want your cell phone, so you can log your GPS coordinates. Another thing I see that's cool here is a map of the canyon. So if you're on a known trail, you might be able to look at this map, see where you are, where you're going, and also it might show some other interesting geologic features in the area. We're gonna go a little bit further into the canyon to look at a really interesting rock outcrop. The present is the key to the past is a main theme that you'll hear in geology. That means basically that looking at the rocks around us helps us understand how they were formed and when they were formed. So let's look at some of the rocks around us and do some observations. This is an interesting outcrop because it has larger rocks embedded in smaller grains of sand. This is called a conglomerate. A famous conglomerate in San Diego is the Mission Valley Formation. It can be found all the way from Poway down to Mission Valley, and it's a large plain of rocks that were deposited by a river. How do we know it was deposited by a river? Well, if we take a look at some of these rocks here, you'll see smooth edges. Water is a really good geologic agent, which means it erodes, it transports, and it deposits all sorts of different rock features. If you look at a section of Eocene rock as pictured here, you will find cobblestones. During this period in geologic history, most of San Diego was part of an outwash plain from a large river system called the Ballena River. Eocene history was at first perplexing to scientists because it tells a story much different than the San Diego we see today. These rocks are rounded and poorly sorted, meaning that they have been eroded from their parent rock and transported quickly down a stream channel. Geologists were wondering, where did the parent rock that's deposited in this Eocene formation come from? So they were able to track down a source of this rhyolite rock from Sonora, Mexico. Now, if you think about the placement of Sonora, Mexico and San Diego today, you won't find them right next to each other. You actually find Sonora hundreds of miles south and San Diego hundreds of miles north. How is it that Sonora has shifted all the way south and San Diego has shifted north? Well, let's think of the San Andreas Fault. That's a fault system over in our deserts of San Diego. It runs south and north. What was once Sonora and San Diego have been shifted altogether. So this is interesting because it ties right back into that theme, the present is the key to the past. When you're examining geology, you can look at the rocks around you and start to form a picture of San Diego's geologic history. So let's make our way down into Ruffin Canyon. When we look here, what are the main things that you think cut this canyon? What was the eroding agent? Water. Do you think we can find some water? Maybe there's a river down deep in the canyon. Let's go take a look. right, so we've made it to our water source. This water here that you see is a small part of a large system that has carved this canyon out. So I went ahead and logged some journal entries for our notebook. The location today is going to be Ruffin Canyon, July 3rd at 11:40 a.m. I also got our coordinates from my cell phone and some notes of the area. It's a riparian area, so there's a lot of dense vegetation that thrives off of water, lots of green lushness. And the geology of the area, actually we transitioned into a different conglomerate. This is called the stadium conglomerate, and I've actually found some very interesting specimen that I would like to collect today. So here we've collected 3 different types of rocks. The first one is the rhyolitic rock that we've seen earlier, the igneous volcanic rock. Next we have a metamorphic rock. This one's called andesite, and as you can see there's actually striations of different rock embedded in this one. And the third sample we have here is quartzite, which is also a metamorphic rock made from sandstone. I logged these 3 rocks in our field journal. So along with the location, date, time, coordinates, notes, geology, I also put the specimen. So specimen number 1 is rhyolite, specimen number 2 is andesite, and specimen number 3 is quartzite. So these are just really good ways of remembering your day and logging information that you have from your field journal.